So, board meetings. What happens in a board meeting? What do they do? This concept is somewhat shrouded in mystery for young inexperienced entrepreneurs and for people who have never been to a board meeting. In my experience, all these important guys come to your company and go into a room and talk for hours and hours. So what goes on? What happens during a board meeting? That's what we're going to talk about right now. Essentially, board meetings are a regular review of corporate activities. And I've listed two types here, either regular board meetings or what I call a special board meeting. A regular board meeting means that periodically, according to the rules of the company, you will hold a board meeting to keep your board, who is a governance body, up to speed on what's happening inside of the company. A special board meeting can also be called if there's an emergency, either for a positive or negative reason. Maybe you have a really big important deal that has come to fruition. Maybe you have something really terrible that's happening, like you're running out of money or what have you. You can call special or regular board meetings. Regular board meetings generally take no advance notice according to the bylaws and rules of your company. Special board meetings sometimes do require advance notice, and that depends on state laws and where your company was formed. So the board meetings generally, a chairman presides, and there are minutes taken, meaning that the chairman of the board, who is appointed by the board, launches the meeting and goes through a process of talking about the agenda, and then there's someone else there who's actually recording what happens at the board meeting. Sometimes that's an attorney, sometimes it's a secretary, but corporate minutes are important because they become the standing record of what was discussed during the board meeting. And then often, various officers in the company, consultants and others will participate or present in the board meeting, and they can discuss anything from ongoing operations to major deals. Also, what will happen is the board will eventually go through this discussion process, and they will make a motion to do something. This is when they're moving toward what's called a resolution. A resolution involves a vote by the board, and the board authorizes something to happen. So there'll be a discussion. Someone will motion for something to happen, meaning I'm going to make a motion that we issue more shares for our new investor. There's a second. Another board member will say, I second the motion, and then they'll go toward a vote. In order to do this, the board has to have what's called a quorum. So there has to be a certain number of board members there. That generally is a majority of the board members. So if you have 5, 3 have to be there for you to do any business. That's also in the bylaws of the company. So if you do have a quorum and you do go through a discussion and you motion and there's a second and you're voting on an issue, what would they be voting on? So typically, if it's something important enough to require a resolution, it would be the hiring and firing of an officer, a strategic transaction, or potentially the issuing of securities or options for employees for whatever purpose securities are issued for. So the board votes on those resolutions, and the resolutions are passed and recorded in the minutes. And then there's a couple of things about the bylaws that I wanted to mention that are important. Generally, the board has an uneven number of board members, so that passing these resolutions is easy. You don't have a bunch of tie votes. If you had 4 board members and 2 voted for and 2 voted against a resolution, you can see nothing would ever get done. So you have an uneven number of board members, and generally it's a majority vote to pass a resolution. This can change, and it can be stipulated differently, but that's generally the way it breaks down. So board meetings shouldn't be that much of a mystery anymore. Essentially, it's the executives inside of a company updating the board on what's happening, and then the board moves toward passing any major resolutions in relation to the company's governance.